pedal harps. So pedal harps are quite an invention. They have these pedals, 7 pedals on the bass that change the pitch of the string by moving these discs, say for all the C strings, to go from C flat to C natural to C sharp. And that, of course, frees up both hands to be playing, while you can create accidentals, play chromatic sections to some extent. So it's essential, like if you're looking at playing the classical harp repertoire, if you're, obviously you'll need a pedal harp. If you want to play jazz, it's going to be a lot easier on the pedal harp. Certainly you can do a lot on the lever harp, and there's more and more material that's being written for it, but pedal harp certainly does give you more options, plus more strings and a bigger sound. Amazing instruments. So what should you be looking at in terms of buying a pedal harp? Well, of course, there's a number of strings. 47 is the most and kind of the standard. 46, all the way down to maybe as few as 40. There's also a extended soundboard or straight soundboard. And then it can be a little confusing because, these student models or professional models, and like, what's the difference? And I wish on these manufacturer sites that they specified exactly what it is that you're paying for. Because, I have no problem with saying, okay, this particular harp, yes, it's 47 strings, extended soundboard, same as this other one, but this one, the wood that we use is not as good in the soundboard, so it's not going to sound as good, but it's cheaper. Great, that's a trade-off that one can understand, but it's not specified, right? And obviously, sometimes the reason that one model is more expensive than the other is because of the extra work that's done, the ornamentation, the carving, the gold leaf, etc. But sometimes I think it also has to do with the sound or the construction of the soundboard, and I wish that was more plainly stated so that we had more information, right? Because again, that's a fine trade-off to say, well, okay, I'm going to get this harp. Yes, I understand maybe it's not going to sound quite as good, but that's what the harp that I can afford. But it can be confusing looking at and trying to figure out, well, what's the difference between this harp and this harp if all we're going on are, say, the number of strings or extended soundboard, whatever. So just like any instrument, there's no substitute to getting a chance to actually play on it yourself, checking out the ergonomics, does it feel comfortable for you, and checking out the sound. And in terms of the number of strings, that's going to depend. It's going to depend a lot. So obviously the ones on the bottom, the ones on the top don't get played that often, but they do get used. My own personal feeling would be that, I'd want to spend a little bit extra money and get that 47 strings just because I might need it. And for me, obviously I do need it. That being said, it's quite possible that you might never miss. Might even go down to 45 strings or something and not miss those extra strings. So it's going to depend partly on you, where you see yourself going with the harp, and also, if you're doing a lot of gigs with this harp, right? If you're moving it a lot, hey, maybe you want like a 45 or 44 string harp because, you're not playing maybe concert repertoire. Maybe you're playing background music or weddings and stuff like that. And so the repertoire that you're playing doesn't need it. And the fact that it's smaller and more portable, it's a huge bonus, right? I'd love to have another smaller harp. That would be a great one to just move around. So I can't tell you for sure. Again, my own inclination would be if you're kind of on the fence, would be to go ahead and get the full size. But yeah, you never know. Speaking of moving them around, the other thing to just be aware of is check the weight. I don't know how accurate all the manufacturers' websites are, but they do tend to list a weight, and just be aware of that because, again, depending on what you're going to do with it and how big you are, for example, you may enjoy having a lighter harp rather than a heavier harp. Just something to be aware of. And other than that, again, talking with other harpists is great, and just trying to play on as many different harps as possible. So, and listening for the sound, listening for the feel or seeing how it feels. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on pedal harps.